Well, it's 1:01 p.m., so I guess it's time for me to go ahead and get started. Um, oh, my mic's working. Let's just get that out of the way. I hope everything looks nice and pretty. So yeah, welcome everybody. It's the first time I wanted to try something like this. I've been meaning to try it for a while. Hopefully it'll be fun. Hopefully I'll make a little bit of sense, and I'm just gonna talk and hopefully entertain y'all. Uh, so yeah, that's pretty much it. Um, I call it like a podcast type of show, thingamajig talk show thing. Really, I'm just gonna spit out information and stuff and show you a few things, and we'll see if everybody likes it. Uh, Today, though, what has been on my mind? I go in my life. I go through, I don't know what you want to call it, phases of. I'll be like really, for lack of a better term, like obsessed and focused with like one thing for a couple of weeks, and then it moves on to the next thing. And for the past week or so, I have fallen back into because sometimes it's a relapse phase, but I've fallen back into cars. Anybody that knows me, my parents, my good friends, they know. Yeah, you made it to the podcast. Welcome. Um, my parents, my good friends, they know that I really like cars. I'm not very good when it comes to like working on cars or anything like that, but I do enjoy the fancy car, stuff like that. And so that makes it nice and fun. So much so to the point that, for example, my sister-in-law, my brother's wife, she gave me this for Christmas, this little Lego Ferrari, um, because she knew that it was something I would enjoy pretty much no matter what, and she was right. Um, it's a nice, fancy-looking car. If this light in my room didn't glare off of it so much. Um, so I've been thinking about it for a while. I've been thinking about cars and dream cars and stuff like that. And so I thought I would ask the random strangers on the internet and the people I know some things about what they think some of their dream cars would be. I'll start with some of the more funny ones to begin with. Specifically from my little brother. My little brother was one of the few people that actually answered the question I asked about what his favorite car was, what his dream car was, sort of thing. I think the way I phrased it on my Instagram poll was, "What is your all-time favorite car?" Um, and his answer was and I'm going to butcher this name super hard, but his answer was a Grumman LLV. And his reason being is it seats the wrong size and the whole car is trunk space. Now, excuse me. If you're like me, you had no idea what a Grumman. I thought I liked cars. I thought I knew cars. I had no idea what a Grumman LLV is um, until I looked it up. So let me just scoot this off to the side a little bit here. Oh, that's the wrong one. I'm going to scoot this off to the side. So, in case anybody isn't familiar, this is what a Grumman LLV is. It's the post office car. Yeah. This is this is my little brother's Favorite car. I kind of think he was messing with me, but hey, whatever. They're reliable. I'll give him that. Um, and you always know when they're coming down the road. Uh, you always know when they're coming down the road. One of my other friends responded. He said his favorite car was a white Mazda 3, which is the car I drive. Um, which is actually not a bad car. Just it's not a terrible car. These are a little bit newer than the one I have. The car I have is a 2013 model. Um, it's not a hatchback either. I have a sedan. Um, oh, geez, what did I do? They're not bad cars though. I have driven my car across the country 3 times now, and I haven't had any major issues with it. So if you're watching for some reason and you're looking for a car to maybe buy for college, not a bad option. Um, Mine is so base level that it doesn't even have cruise control on it, but it has everything else. So what else do you want? What else can you ask for? Um, another good response I got from somebody off of Instagram. I'm gonna have to message this person because I don't know. I know this person, but I don't know who they are from their Instagram. So I'm a terrible friend. Uh, Here's their favorite car. Yep, Volkswagen Beetle. Thing of beauty. Um, my mom actually drives one of these, and she loves it. Uh, she absolutely loves the Volkswagen Beetle. She calls it. I've got something for you guys, but you have to give me a second. She calls it her Euro truck. My mom drives this one actually, a red Volkswagen, newer Volkswagen Beetle like this. Um, Actually, this is probably a better. Yeah, that's closer to what my mom drives right there. Um, it is surprising when you fold the back seats down about how much stuff you can fit in the back of that car. Um, and since my mom drove it, and until recently I was a bum living at my parents' house, um, I drove it a couple times. This is actually a pretty fun car to drive. Like my car is nice and it's reliable, but it's not necessarily like fun to drive. Um, because it's just it's a car that's designed. I drive my Maserati. Um, it's a car that's designed to just do what a car needs to do to get you from point A to point B and to not break down and be reliable. Um, this car is also designed to do that, but because it is so small, it basically just feels like a golf cart or a go kart is actually a better way to phrase it. It feels like a large go kart, and so it is. Even though it's not a sporty car necessarily, it's not considered a sports car. It is still a very fun car to drive. And it's pretty comfortable too. Who would have thought that the Germans could design something like that? Okay, so now I have to show you what my friend just sent me. Who is watching this? He sent me this car. The 1995 Ford Escort vehicle description beats walking. And, hey, for $595, I might be able to afford that right now. um, okay, let's see what else we got. I also went. I went onto Reddit and I put up a post on the Ask Reddit, and this is how I phrased it. It said, It's only got 2 upvotes. You can see how popular I am. What the heck is this? Stop saying this ad. Mr. Beast has chosen you to be in his next video. He's letting you buy your dream car. What car are you buying? And some people on this subreddit have no imagination. Like this person. What car has the largest resale? This person's more of a practical individual. I wouldn't be able to keep up with the insurance premium, gas maintenance costs of anything too fancy. So I'll say a mid-size Honda, which is, again, not bad cars. But I was looking for something exciting, exotic, stuff like that. And I got a few. We'll start down here. A big block 70 Chevelle SS Supercharged, which, look at these things. This is a beautiful car right there. And I know it seems ridiculous, but this thing sticking out of the hood, I absolutely love the engine block sticking out of the hood like that. But these old school muscle cars, I love them so much. This is something at least for me, cars don't have to be the best for me to like them. It's more about the style and the feel of the car. Yeah, it's a really big hood ornament. How about this one that's got like a jet turbine sticking out of it? But it's more about the style, the feel of the car, and pretty much the overall aesthetic. And these things, check this out. If I can type. These things, they sound amazing, especially old school muscle cars like this. Man, this guy's got a shaky camera. We missed the rev. That's such a good sounding car. I love, oh gosh, big V8 engines like that. They're so good. I love them so much. This sounds really funny. Camera's on a tripod. The engine is just that powerful. Seriously, I want a car like that one day. This sounds ridiculous, but the other day at work, I didn't drive. One of my friends gave me a ride yesterday, and I had to go pick something up from the store for the gym I work at, and I took my boss's truck. And like I said, I drive a little Mazda 3, which is a great car, but I got it in my boss's truck, and it has a V8 in it. And I was like, wow, it feels amazing, just to hear that engine rumble something that's bigger than a 4-cylinder for once in a while. But I mean, they just sound good. Such good stuff. Totally would have, if I was able to collect cars, I'd have at least one muscle car like this in my collection. Here's another guy who wanted a muscle car, all original 1979 Chevy Impala. Look at that. Obviously, if you want, base model and stuff, it looks something more like this. It still looks pretty sleek. Not as tricked out as something like this. Doesn't have that giant hood ornament. How about some big rims? You want some big rims on it? Or you can drop the ride down lower. That looks good. Excuse me. Um, Super good looking cars right here. And again, it'll have that V8 grumble with it. Good old muscle cars. All right. What did some other people say? This guy wants a Rolls Royce with curtains. I'm pretty sure all Rolls didn't all of them come with it. Rolls Royces are the fancy of fancy cars. Um, there is no way around it. Look at that. That is beautiful. And these things are pricey. $314,000. Um, Usually you have a chauffeur for stuff like this. They're not necessarily designed to be a car that you drive per se. They're to be a car that you ride in. They are insanely comfortable. Their ride is super smooth, and they have, I believe they're called suicide doors on them, which is, if you see right here, this front door opens up normally, um, but the back door opens up the wrong way. Uh, Let me see if I can find something with this really quick. Why has everybody got to make giant videos? Oh yeah, that's fun too. They always give you an umbrella in a Rolls Royce. Used to have a Hot Wheels that looked like that. I used to have a Hot Wheels that looked like a lot of the cars I wanted. Let's see if this one is quick enough. I mean, good looking car. It's not small either. This is a very large car. So see, the front door opens normally. Look at that interior. I mean, everything, it's got that nice polished wood. Everything is leather. It's very, very clean. All these metal knobs and door handles, couple speakers in the sides and stuff. This just looks beautiful and so comfortable to sit in. I would totally do a cross country trip again if I had one of these cars to drive. Maybe that's where this all started. I've got a story, but that's more for the end of this. Yeah, and see, the back door opens up backwards, a suicide door. It's easier to get in and out of because somebody else is driving the car. You see this right here, that little like knob? That's not the door handle, that's an umbrella. They give an umbrella. And look how much space there is. Even me, I'm not a small person. But even I would be comfortable sitting in the back of this car. Like, and I don't necessarily mean I'm gargantuan, I'm just fat. Decently tall and kind of fat. Look at that. It's like a sofa in the back there. Such good looking cars. This guy, whoever commented, this guy, he specifically said he wanted it to have like curtains on it. So yeah, maybe. Um, Here we go. This guy wants to be James Bond right here. The Aston Martin DB5. Oop. We would be comfortable in the trunk. It's big enough to hide a body. This is like the OG James Bond car, um, with Sean Connery and stuff. Uh, Aston Martins, much like Rolls Royces, they are kind of the epitome. I don't know, epitome. They're very classy, if that makes sense. Whenever you see one, you're like, oh, that is a slick car. even the old ones. I mean, but just look at that. That looks so good. They even today they still have this grill design on the front so that they're very easy to identify. Like if you look at the ones from today, like the DB9, still a beautiful looking car, but see, it still has that kind of unique grill design on the front with the wings, all that stuff. This guy wanted the DB5 though, and I don't blame him. It would be cool to own a classic car like this. Um, but this is probably so expensive. But it would be amazing to own this classic car. I'm gonna scoot myself up there a little bit. Own this classic car to just be stylish. I mean, the interior, it's the best at what that time period had to offer. So it's not necessarily huge. See, there's Daniel Craig sitting on it. See, this is a normal sized dude squatting next to it. It's not a gargantuan car or anything like that. But look at that leather interior. Everything is very nice. You have to get over the fact that it doesn't have an airbag. Um, but that's just part of owning an old school car, classic car. What did some other people say? This guy, oh, I missed a muscle car right here. The 1969 Dodge Daytona. Look at that. Look at that spoiler. My gosh. I will always call every American sports car from this time period a muscle car because that's what they are. They were designed to go fast and to have a big engine. Um, and these things look, my goodness. It actually, the only thing I don't like about this is the fact that there's this gargantuan spoiler on the back. But I do understand that that's kind of necessary to keep the car on the ground. Uh, Obviously, aerodynamics were not as big of a thing back when this was built. Like, it was something people knew about. Obviously, we had planes and stuff like that. But as for car design, a lot of the super fancy, exotic sports cars of nowadays are designed primarily with aerodynamics in mind. Wasn't necessarily the case back when this was built. Um, but most American muscle cars like that, um, and even today, Mustangs, Camaros, Corvettes. I don't know about the Challenger. Yes, I don't know about the Charger, but most American muscle cars, even today, are rear wheel drive. So for instance, if you drive a car like mine, like a Mazda, most cars like that are front wheel drive. So the power comes from here, but on this car, it comes from back here. But the engine is up here, so that means most of the weight of the car is on this side, this axle. So there's nothing really to keep that wheel on the ground, especially at higher speeds. With all the horsepower and the torque you get from the engine, this wheel would just spin. And so that's why it needs this giant spoiler, is because that creates enough downforce that the air is actually just pushing down on top of it, and it lets the wheel stay on the ground and you can burn rubber like nothing else in the world. I'd have to I've only driven one classic muscle car before. It was a 1967 Corvette. So much fun. It belonged to my neighbor back when I was living with my parents. Um, it was a great car. I loved it so much. But I'd have to. So I had fun with that classic muscle. I'll have to. I wish I could get my hands on something like this just to drive around for a day. Not even two. Just enough to experience it, feel what it's like, see how cool it is to drive. And that's how I feel about pretty much all these cars. If there's some rich person that doesn't mind me burning some rubber, that would be amazing. What else? What else did people respond to my thing? the Spiker C8. This is a fun car, funny looking car, fun car. Um, check this out. This is kind of a concept model of it. This is definitely what it looks like. It's not really coming into focus too well. There we go. Um, it's got a little tube on its head. I don't know too much about spikers, to be honest. I know they're made somewhere in Europe. That doesn't help anybody at all. But they look pretty fancy. It looks like it'd be a fun little car to drive. Looks like it's a two-seater. Yeah, little two-seater sports car. Oh, look, all these other fancy cars behind it too. Um, is this one of the new ones? Yeah, with that little tube on its head. This back end looks very good. It's giving me very it gives me big Corvette vibes, to be honest, though, with this fin that's right here and these double circle lights on it. The only difference is that in a Corvette, or the old Corvettes, this double circle was not bent down, it was just flat across the back. And even having the logo right there, this looks. This part of the rear bumper looks like a Corvette. This does not. Um, it just doesn't. But that looks. Ooh, look at that interior. Can we get an interior photo? Ooh, that looks classy. Looks like you're operating like a submarine or something. Look, it's got an exposed gear shifter so you can see the mechanisms moving. Everything is just dials. Like everything's a circle. Speedometer, engine temperature, your odometer, your revs, the air vents, and then everything else is switches. They're little. That's actually pretty cool. That'd be a fun little car to have. Um, wow. Looks like I would have to guess, but the pedals are literally just squares and rectangles. Like look at that. They're just slabs of metal. I would guess this is how you turn the lights on, this is how you turn the AC on. If this switch is the ignition switch, I'm so down with having a little red cap over the ignition to turn your car on. There we go. This one's got some different leather on the inside. That looks very good too. I like that. They're English. Okay, it's an English car company. Sounds good. They're probably owned by a German car company at this point. Volkswagen and Audi own a lot of different car companies now. Um, but don't take my word on that because I'm not 100% sure. But it's initially another English sports car. So we have the Rolls Royce, the Aston Martin, maybe I shouldn't say the Rolls Royce, but at least the Aston Martin and the Spike are both English sports cars. I'm pretty sure the Rolls Royce is too, but I'm not 100% sure. Um, here we go. This guy. This guy wants German. German power. The Mercedes AMG GTR. This is one of their newer cars, and it looks so good. Um, it is the upgraded model of this. So Mercedes, they made this, the SLS AMG first. Their SL line has always been their like top tier cars, super fancy, super gosh dang it, very comfortable. But able to compete on the same line as like Ferraris and Lamborghinis and stuff like that. The engines are huge, they're very powerful, the car is very fast, but it's a Mercedes, so it's also up to date on everything. Some of the nicest cars. Mercedes makes some of the nicest cars ever, in my opinion. I've only driven one, and I've ridden in a couple more. Um, they're just nice. One of the last ones I rode in was, I believe it was a Mercedes E Class, so they're larger, one of their larger cars. That's not an SUV. That thing had a massage chair in built into the passenger seat. I was getting a massage sitting in the passenger seat. It was one of the most ridiculous things I've ever seen, but at the same time, it was nice. That's the kind of cars Mercedes makes, and this is their like top of the line car, the SLS AMG. This guy on the and then they came out with the what they called the Black line, or the Black Series, which is the amped up, more sporty, more race like version of the SLS AMG. Um, Absolutely, you can tell just by the two pictures. This one, you notice the edges are smoother, it's more narrow, it's lower to the ground, it looks more aerodynamic. You got spoilers on the back of them now. See how it looks softer to be um see this see how it's not quite, this one is more designed for to be fancy, the original SLS AMG to be fancy, to be luxurious, that sort of stuff. Um But these ones, the Black Series, they're designed to race. You can see it's, even though this is already low to the ground to begin with, you can see this is lower, bigger back tires than the original. Like it's still, on a lot of fancy cars like this, they have a large back tire and then, or a larger back tire and then a slightly smaller front tire. Um, and that looks good too. But the brilliant part about this car is like, even though it's designed to compete with like Ferraris and Lamborghinis and Maseratis and stuff like that, um, it's still a car you could use if you had $500,000 to spend on it. Um, but like, granted, it only sits two people, but it has a trunk and a good sized trunk too. Um, so plus, you look fancy as all get out with those gull wing doors on it. The only other car that sort of made that popular was the DeLorean from Back to the Future. Um, Obviously, if you get the convertible version, you're not going to have the gull wing doors. But either way, so yeah, a nice racing car. Here we go. The GTR Roadster. See how it keeps that same body style of low to the ground, more sleek, more aerodynamic? It's even still got that spoiler on the back. Um, right there. But it's a convertible. Although if you are looking to like race a car like this, you don't want a convertible version. Like if you're actually going to go to the track and try to set times and be fast and stuff like that, you don't want a convertible. Convertibles, and this is the reason why. Um, on a car is held together. Can I get like more of a side profile of the car? The car is held together. The front of the car, where the engine and everything is, that's usually pretty heavy. On a car like this, the engine's all up here. Um, and then there's not really a lot in the back because that's the trunk. There's a few things, but you know the exhaust goes all the way through. But to hold the car together in one piece, the car is connected by the A-frame and everything at the top of the car and everything across the bottom, the frame across the bottom of the car, with the axles and the drivetrain and stuff like that. Now, if you take the roof out, you're suddenly losing a lot of the support that you got from the A-frame and all that stuff. So, in order to compensate for that, especially on more expensive, more powerful cars like this one, in order to do that, a lot of the times car companies have to firm up the support and it adds across the bottom of the frame of the car, and that adds a lot of weight. That messes with the initial, because usually they make convertibles second. They make the original car like this, and then they'll make the convertible second. Um, because it takes some time to figure out how are we going to make a convertible that can use the same engine without the car just falling to pieces because it's missing half of its support. So that adds weight, that messes with the handling, the suspension, the acceleration, all of that. But that doesn't mean, but that only really matters if you're like going to race the car. You know what I mean? If you want a convertible of something as fancy as this, if you want to show off, go for it. I've driven convertibles before. They're so much fun to drive. Um, at least during the summer, they're fun to drive. They're not very fun. I wouldn't imagine they're very fun to drive during the winter. Um, but during the summer, they're pretty nice. So let's get on to some of the last things. I don't want to spend a stupid amount of time talking about this, considering I have to go to work in an hour and a half. Um, One of the last comments, I think it's basically all of them. This guy, he had two. The Nissan GTR R32 Skyline, which is often considered to be one of the best cars ever made. If you've watched Fast and Furious Tokyo Drift, you're familiar with this car. Um, and the reason being was Nissan came out with this car, and it doesn't necessarily look like anything ridiculous, right? It looks like a sporty car, but it looks very similar to a lot of other Japanese cars that came out around that time. You know what I mean? And a lot of American cars too that were just regular sedans. It doesn't necessarily, it's like, oh, it's got a spoiler on it and stuff. Like, why, what's the big deal? That sort of thing. The engine. The engine was the big deal, and the suspension and the handling. Um, these hand-built engines, this thing could keep up and on a pretty consistent basis outperform Ferraris and Maseratis and Mercedes and BMWs. These cars that are expensive and supposed to be the high end of vehicles. And then this car came along and trashed them at all of it. It's also very easy to, oh, okay, maybe not easy, but it's very accessible if you know how to work on cars, and you know how to upgrade them and switch out parts and stuff. This is a lot more accessible to do that than a Mercedes, like that SLS I was just talking about with the last guy. Uh, so no two skylines are necessarily the same because of that. And there are also a lot of, if you want one of these in America at least, where I live, I'm pretty sure there are certain regulations as to what you're allowed to have and what you're not allowed to have on it. So if you're looking into getting one of these, just be careful. Um, this the Skyline is what spawned this. This is kind of today's Skyline, the Nissan GTR. It's not quite as, this is still a phenomenal car. Look at that spitting flames. And again, it's outperforms all these cars, all these fancy, expensive cars at about half to three quarters of the price of all those cars. Plus, it's just got this sounds blasphemous, But I'm pretty sure the Nissan GTR of nowadays just has a V6 in it, which is smaller than pretty much any engine in any of the fancier cars. And normally I'm all about having the bigger engine and the noise and everything like that. Um, but I think they supercharge or twin turbocharge the V6 in this, and it gets the job done. But this car of nowadays, this is what kind of inspired that this insane street racing car that just sounds really ridiculous and performs really ridiculously as well. It's just something of beauty. And then he had another one, which was the Lamborghini Countach, because why not? And I couldn't really agree with you more on that. Why not? Lamborghini Countach is one of their older ones, and it looks like a door jam. Um, no offense to Lamborghini, um, because I love their cars. Uh, but this is awesome. This is exactly what you look for in a Lamborghini. It's ridiculous. It's loud. It's got those scissor doors, and it has pop up headlights, which is just door jam car. Yeah, seriously. I mean, it does. It's very short. Look at that. It's got these big vents in the back to cool the engine off and stuff. But it's still very distinctly a Lamborghini, and you can't ask for more than that. I mean, look at that. It's got all these vents and stuff for the engine. We finally reached a car in people's from people's comments and stuff about a car that is a mid-engine car, which doesn't necessarily mean that the engine is necessarily directly in the middle of the car. What it means is the engine is located in between the two wheels. So if you're looking at it from the side, this is considered mid-engine. You can see the passengers here, which is more the true middle of the car. The engine's like right here, which is in between the two axles. Um, it still looks, even though it looks a little ridiculous, it's the door jam car and stuff. Um, it still looks very good. Um, I would, I wouldn't mind fiddling with something like that. And what's this interior? Obviously, it's an older car, so the interior is not as extreme as they are nowadays. They're not as ridiculous, but that still looks good. You know what I mean? You got your gated shifter right there. Those are so cool. I want to drive a car with one of those one day. All the shifters I've had always have the little cloth leather thing over the stick shift. I want to drive a gated shifter like that where you can hear it like clunk, clunk. That would be, oh, that's so good. Um, super, that looks very nice. Leather and stuff. It looks kind of small though. That is something about older cars is that they're small. I mentioned that I had the opportunity to my neighbor let me drive his 1970 or 60 no 1976. I think I said 67 earlier, but it's a 1976. He let me drive a 1976 Corvette that he owned, and that's a small car. Old cars are small cars. Um, and the only reason I fit was because you could punch the roof out. It was a convertible, and I'm not a super huge person. I'm a little tall. I'm the shortest in my family, which sounds ridiculous when I also say that I'm 6 feet tall. But all my brothers and my dad are taller than me. I'm so I'm not necessarily short, and I'm also not necessarily small. I weigh 265 pounds. Like I weightlift. Like I'm kind of a fat kid. Um, so this looks a little small for me. It looks like a cool and fun car to drive, but this interior looks pretty small. For a lot of other people, though, this looks like it would work fine. Um, there was one more I wanted to talk about. You'll have to give me a second, because in my nervous habits of trying to prep anything for this, I totally forgot. I also I also asked this question on my Twitter account of you look 5'10" around them, you just weighted down with all the muscle. I do look 5'10" compared to my brothers. We all need to I need to get a photo of all of us again. Um, my brothers make me look short, and it's pretty funny. Uh, but I don't think we haven't necessarily. We were all planning on getting back together for Christmas this year, but that didn't happen. So my oldest brother responded to my Twitter question with this: "What's your favorite car of all time and why?" Excuse me while I type with one hand because I'm inefficient like that. And I even spelled Porsche wrong. Anyways, he responded with this: the 1960 Porsche Aberrath 356B Carrera. Um, this is a this is probably the more along the lines of the one we saw, something like this. Um, he said he didn't know a ton about this car, and I don't either. Have you seen the Singer Porsche 911 Rally build? No, I'm gonna have to look that up. Uh, but he said he was just blown away by the aesthetic of this car. And can you blame him? This is a very good looking car. We saw this car at a museum, which sounds maybe your second favorite. I think you have a thing for Porsches. I'll have to show you another Porsche after I look up the Singer 911. Um, there was a exhibit going on at this museum we went to. It is sexy. Um, Called Porsche by Design, and it was like a history of Porsche and their cars and all that stuff. And they had individual models, brilliant condition, original parts and everything. They had all these different models of kind of their big cars throughout the years, and this was one of them. This was the one my brother really enjoyed. Porsche, they have a little bit of fun with their cars. They do something slightly funny. They have a rear engine, which is you remember how I said in the Lamborghini, so like most cars, the engine in the front over the front axle, like the Mercedes and the Skyline and stuff like that. The Lamborghinis was behind the passenger, but in front of the rear, or in front of behind the driver, but in front of the rear axle, so it's a mid-engine car. Porsche is different. They have a rear engine, so their engine is actually like right on top or behind the back axle. And that's interesting because it actually improves a lot of the performance of the car in certain ways. You get a lot more traction off the back axles. It's plants to the ground better when you take turns. Um, Porsche also they have Boxster engines is what they're known as. Um, Most cars have V-shaped engines, which basically just means the pistons are shaped like this, and they go up and down like that in a V shape. So V6, 6 pistons. V12, 12 pistons. Porsche does Boxsters, which means the pistons are on the side like that, and they go back and forth like this, which are actually, Subaru does it as well, but they're actually very efficient and powerful engines. So you have this Boxster engine over the back axle, insane amounts of traction, and just a good looking car. I mean, look at the interior of this. It's very bare bones because it's a racing car. Like that's what they designed it for. Um, but it doesn't necessarily look bad or like super uncomfortable. You know what I mean? The seats still look pretty nice. They look cushy. No steering, no airbag. That's a huge steering wheel though. No airbag, so just don't crash into anything. And only the dials that you need to see. No extra clutter junk on the dash. So let's see. What did you say? The Singer Porsche 911, the rally build, right? Oh, there we go. That's another old school Porsche. That already looks good. This is just what the normal looking car looks like. Is that old school or is that like early 2000s? Their design is really similar uh their entire career, and so sometimes it's hard to tell. That's an older one. That's got to be an older one. Let's see this rally build. What in the world? Look at it's got SUV tires on it. I'm sure that thing hauls. That says safari ready for extreme rally races. That's funny. I like that actually. I like ridiculousness with cars like that. People building, doing builds of cars. They gutted out the interior. Look at that. Now the seats are really cushy. That's super funny. Um I got one more for you. One more Porsche for you, Joshua. Um this is a new one. Um the old version of this was it was my favorite Porsche at one point. Um and then this is the new version of it, which is the Porsche 918 Spider. Look at that. This car just looks good. Every now and then, like I said, Porsche, they keep their design really similar throughout the years, but every now and then they have a little bit of fun. And like looking at the front end, like that's still a Porsche, the headlights, the badge, it's all the same and stuff. But looking at the back end, they designed a car, like an actual sports car, an exotic, something to blow McLarens, Lamborghinis, Ferraris, just out of the water. And like, look at this. See those two bumps right there. Oh yeah, and the car is designed to be a convertible. Like I know I talked to a little bit earlier about how, oh, if you want to race cars, convertibles aren't the best or anything like that. But this car is designed to be able to race as the convertible. It was designed with the convertible in mind, so there's no hard top and then soft top version or anything like that. You can just take the roof off if you want. That those little roof sections, they just come out, and that's how the car was designed. And even with that, it still is able to race and compete with all these other high-end cars. But this is my favorite. So you have you have the passenger seat, and that's the driver's seat. That right there behind them, that's the exhaust pipes. You imagine what it sounds like with the roof off, revving that thing? We're gonna find out. See if this guy will give us a couple revs. There we go. That just sounds good. That looks good. It performs good. It's also, believe it or not, a hybrid. It's a hybrid car. But that's so you can actually run this if you had this car for some reason, if you had the money for this car and you ran it in the city, um you could run it on the electrical motor and and you wouldn't have to use any gas. It's actually a hybrid. The idea of it being a hybrid, though, is that in F1 cars they do this. This is F1 cars, sort of where the technology started. The electric motors are supposed to, in a racing standpoint, they supplement the the gas engine. So you have this. I believe this car has a V8 in it. Um, it's either a V8 or a V. No, the old one had the Carrera GT had the V10. This one's got a supercharged or turbocharged V8 in it or something like that. Still a very powerful engine. That's one of the beautiful parts about technology is that technology progresses with cars too. So even though the engine is smaller than its predecessor, it's more powerful. Um, so if you were on the track like that video was and you were racing this thing, you as you go around the corners, when it comes to racing, corners are where you lose speed. You lose traction. You have to hit the brakes. You have to slow the car down. It's just simple physics, you know. Think of riding a bike. If you're going in a straight line and all of a sudden you crank it way to the right, you're just going to fall off the bike because all your momentum wants to carry you forward. Same thing with a car. So you lose a lot of speed in the corners. So what the electric motors were designed to do in a car like this, when it comes to racing or an F1 vehicle, is that as you take the corners, the electric motors provide extra power to the individual wheels to help you maintain traction, to help you maintain speed, everything like that, which is really cool technology. But Porsche was like, well, most people are going to be driving this on a road, so we'll technically make it a hybrid. So you can run it off the electrical motor, or you can run it in some sort of hybrid sense with the V8 without actually having to race it, which is I think is hilarious. But it just so there's another Porsche for you, Joshua. It's just looks good. It sounds good. Just look at that. And you don't have to buy a more expensive convertible model because it's just ridiculously expensive to begin with, and a convertible. Um. All right, last one. Mine for last. My personal favorite dream car for last. Um, I put this up so that people could see it, but my dream car is the Lamborghini Murcielago. Um, and this is let's look at that. The Lamborghini Murcielago. I'm probably saying it wrong because I'm not Italian. This goes back to somebody mentioned earlier that they were like, oh, maybe Hot Wheels was where your obsession with cars started. No, my obsession with cars actually it started with this. It started with this car right here, and the reason it started with this car was, and if my older brother's still listening, he's gonna have a kick out of this one. It's his fault because he bought the original Xbox for us. Um, it's his fault I have this obsession with fancy cars. Not only did he buy the original Xbox, but he bought Need for Speed Hot Pursuit 2, which was a super fun game to play. I remember playing that game. Is awesome game. It's fun game. But if you notice something, here's the cover art. This is the box art for the game right there for our original Xbox. Up front and center, look at what kind of car that is. It's a Lamborghini Murcielago. And it was this game was made back in the days. I'll have to go on a whole nother rant another day about video games and the difference between old games versus new games and stuff like that. But back in the day, whatever was featured on the box cover of the game was usually the best thing in the game you could get. And that was the case with this game. With the case with Need for Speed, the Lamborghini was the best car in the game. So you spent all the game trying to get the car. And then a little bit later down the road, we got another game, another racing game, Midnight Club 3, which doesn't, the box, you muscle cars and, tuners. Um, which I've actually been playing this on the last two streams I've done. I've been playing this game again because it's just so much fun and fancy car. Drive racing games are always fun, but this is an arcade racer, unlike Forza, which is more realistic. I prefer the ridiculousness. But in this game as well, the excuse me, one of the best cars you can get in the game is the Lamborghini Murcielago. You have to beat pretty much everything to get the Lamborghini in this game. And so that's where my car obsession started. And it's always been in the back of my mind like this is my favorite car. This is my all-time favorite dream car. I know that it went out of production like 11 years ago, and that the newer Lamborghini, the Huracan and the Aventador, they look better, they perform better, they sound better, they're more reliable. But like, if you're gonna buy a Lamborghini, like you don't care about any of that. You have the money, and so like if I was to buy a Lamborghini, I would buy this Lamborghini or that Lamborghini. I don't know about that color. It does look really good in orange. Um, I'd either want it in a sleek black like this or a green. I'd prefer it to be a darker green, but that looks super good. There, that's an Aventador. That's not a Murcielago. That's the newer one. Um, there we go. But that looks super good as well. Um, just because green is my personal favorite color. So that's the story about why I'm obsessed with cars. This car and those games are why I have such an obsession with cars. Um, and I just love the scissor doors on Lamborghinis too. I love that look on these cars. I mean, look at that. It just looks so good, so sleek. Um, is it the most economical car? Of course not. It's not. It gets freaking like 13 miles to the gallon on the highway, but it's got a V12 in the back of it. It's a huge engine. And if Jeremy Clarkson, who's 6'3", can fit in one of these, I'm 6 foot. I can fit in one of these too. Um, so yeah, there's one for sale down in Vegas. So maybe one day I'll visit you, Joshua, and I'll come buy that car. Um, yeah, that's my whole thing. That's basically all I wanted to talk about today. It was just these super cool, these fancy cars, these cars people wanted. Um, ending it with mine because I'm special and stuff like that. Actually, before I go, let's get some revs out of a Lamborghini.
Oh, what a bummer.
I also love these these are air vents. Um, come visit. Yeah, come visit and we'll go test drive Lamborghinis. Uh, um, you might be able to convince them to let you do it because I'm a physical therapist and da da da. I really like these. I know they look a little ridiculous, but I've always really liked these. These are air vents to help cool off the engine because this big V12 is right here. But they only open up when the engine is warm. So as you speed up, it opens up like that. Um, Random fun fact that I learned the other day: apparently, Murcielago, translated from Spanish, means bat. In the Dark Knight trilogy, Christian Bale drives a Lamborghini Murcielago because he's Batman. But that's just fun little fact. So yeah, I really like those. Look at that freaking exhaust. It's just a giant hole in the back. That's what you get the sound from. Just that just sounds so good. I love it. Absolutely
Can't
love
stop.
it. Okay. So yeah, that's pretty much all I wanted to talk about today. Um, I don't think my last little thing is that like before I sign off, quote unquote. My last little thing is that like um having some sort of like dream car is not like a bad thing. Does that make sense? Um there's a lot of in whatever you want to talk about in a lot of religions and a lot of stuff like that and just like general I'm going to make this a little bigger then since I'm not using that anymore. Um religions and lifestyles and stuff like that. They talk to you about lifestyle coaches and classes. They talk to you about like not being envious about stuff and not coveting stuff and things like that. Um, which is true. You shouldn't do that. You shouldn't be obsessive over other people's stuff and whatever. But I don't think it's a bad thing to have like a dream car, because it gives you something to shoot for. You can always have kind of in the back of your mind, as long as it's not like what you're entirely focused on, but in the back of your mind, having like a dream car gives you something to shoot for. What can I do today so that it's, in the in 10 years or so, I can own that Lamborghini or I can own the Porsche or I'll be able to own, the McLaren or the Mercedes or whatever. It's not a bad idea to have something like that to motivate you. Because hopefully, if you get to the point where you can ever buy a car like that, you'll also be pretty well off with everything else you do in life. So I don't think that's a bad thing. I think it's actually a very good thing to have, for lack of a better term, a goal, something to shoot for, something to motivate you. We talked to, like I said, I said it earlier, I work at a gym. I coach a bunch of high school football players on how to lift weights and stuff. Having a goal to shoot for is never a bad thing. We talk about this all the time with our clients that we work with, and just small little steps. So, in my view, my justification, having the Lamborghini as the background photo of my phone is just something to remind me of a goal I want in life. Um, but yeah, um, there's my rant about dream cars, how awesome they are, what the cars are cool and stuff like that. Thanks for tuning in. It's been pretty fun. I kind of want to do more of these, but I have to come up with more topics. So I'll have to figure out how that rolls. On the off chance, I'm not super huge on this platform, so no sponsors today. My sponsor is Twitch Prime. I don't know. But yeah, if you enjoyed your time, go ahead and follow or subscribe if you're really feeling generous. And hopefully I'll be back with more games in the next few days and hopefully more of this. This was pretty fun, pretty entertaining. And yeah, thanks for tuning in. I'll see you guys later. Once I figure out how to do this whole like sign off thing or whatever. Let's cue the music back up. And then pull the screen back up. Thanks for tuning in.